So welcome to Yoga and Business. This is the fourth conversation that we're having in this space of presenting any sort of topic around life. Woo. Today, I want to introduce my dear friend Kiaora Fox. She is an amazing mother and friend and healer, dancer, and teacher, an artist, and I'm sure many other things to many other people everywhere. And I'm so grateful for your friendship over the years. We've known each other for about 5 years. And hang on one second. There we go. And I think one of the things that brought us forward to the conversation today is over the last 7 weeks, especially for me in my life, I've had this phenomenal transformation in terms of my role in mothering, I feel like. And the way that we hold space for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, that's what I feel is all of our business. And so I talk a lot about like, do your yoga, because your yoga it's your life, it's your business, it's the company you keep are the people that you surround yourself with, right? And you're right. Five good friends is all you really need, they say, to have what's considered a content life, more than anything else, more than money, more than fame, more than like anything. It's having 5 good friends. And we're going to go on all sorts of tangents today. And Kiaora, thank you again. Just what are your thoughts on what it means to be the mother for all that you are in your life?
Oh, so there's so many ways that I have embodied the mother archetype since I was a little girl. And some of those are healthy and some of those are unhealthy, right? Because as a little girl, you're meant to be a child. But I've been practicing. I've been practicing for a long time. I have 3 kids. So I think both my parents were a little bit floored at what they compliment me often. How did you become such a good mother? You didn't learn that from us. Like, where did that come from? And they have so much love, but they have more of a paternal, they both have more of a kind of paternal energy. So, yeah, I think the thing is, a lot of mothering and mothering others comes out of a need for survival. And the work that I'm doing is about how to come out of survival mode and mother from a place of abundance, from a place of center. And there's a lot of shadow of like overgiving. And if your work is in the healing world, overgiving to a point of burnout. And then how do I show up for my life? How do I make money? And there you are back in survival mode again. So there's this place about mothering where actually a lot of what I'm doing lately is trying to embody the queen archetype, which has better boundaries than necessarily the mother. But by having better boundaries, we actually can mother better. So I've been doing a lot of exploration around what do I need? What do I need to mother myself? To not be a martyr, to not be an overgiver. And I have a lot of different ways that I do that. But I'm also noticing that doing a lot of stuff is still actionary, which is yang energy. So how do I come into being? How do I come into softening and allowing the mothering of just holding? Just allowing myself to feel exactly how I feel and tune in. I have to say, making space for that with 3 teens and trying to be an entrepreneur and wanting to give everything to the people who are like, I'm ready for my growth and I'm super excited about my work. I'm still finding my balance with what's it like to close the door to my room and redo my altar and like give myself as much space as I need to activate my altar, because when I do, my life is amazing.
I
And when
hear
I don't, when there's like dust on my altar pieces, I'm like, something's wrong, you know?
Yeah, I
So,
totally hear you. And it was interesting because as you were sort of talking near the end there about, how do I allow this? I noticed myself just take a deep breath in, and in the yoga that I've been taught, inhaling is that allowing. It is literally receiving and understanding that receiving is not, it's not an active grasping, needing to get something. It's that opening of space.
mm,
And literally, actually, it's the opening of space. There is this elongation of the spine that actually happens when you inhale, and really open the upper lungs and then let the belly expand. And
yes.
and that is this full inhale, actually. I mean, I was taught, and I know this is something that yoga teachers will love to debate about, the Ujjayi breath and the inhale from above, exhale from below, and are these things good or bad, and blah, blah, blah. And I think everything has its place, with all due respect to everyone, and what they've learned and why it has been helpful to them, right? Like, it's all helpful. What I was taught was this inhale from above and the exhale from below is the actual technology of the breath without us actually doing anything. When we're just sitting here, whether we want to or not, the breath always comes in from above and moves down into the body, because we just always, air enters through here or here and it moves down.
Mm,
And then when we exhale, and the reason it moves down is because the diaphragm softens and it drops and it opens space. And that's where you get that softening in the front line of the body. And then the diaphragm contracts, and there's that strength literally from the base of the body that pushes the air up and out. And that flow is just the anatomical technology that we are embodying, whether conscious or not,
I would love to pipe in here about
Yeah.
the polyvagal nerve
Yeah.
and how that breathing, that natural breathing that you're speaking of, gets interrupted when we go into survival mode. So the polyvagal nerve, we look at it, it's the Porges polyvagal theory, and there's this beautiful imagery of what that nerve looks like, coming from the base of your skull and going down into your lungs and all into your guts and organs. So there's so much information happening about fight, flight, freeze, or if you're actually okay. And so the ventral vagal, that's the top of our brain, is our place where we can feel really connected to our higher self, connected to our able creativity and to our stillness, right? And when we're disconnected from the ventral vagal, stillness feels like immobilization. It's overwhelm. I can't, and I'm gonna die, or I need to hide. And there's not a lot of breath there. If you ask someone to make a sound in an immobilized place, they'll probably feel like I can't, or like there's something around their throat or chest that's holding. The next place up is the sympathetic nervous system. When that is connected to the ventral vagal, we feel creative ability. We feel like, oh, what can I create? I want to do something. And that's like where yang is in its positivity. When it's not there, when it's in this disconnected place from the ventral vagal, it's holy crap, I'm not okay. I need to make money. I need to do the thing. What do I need to do? And there's this heart rate and there's this belly gut thing. And there's this, either you gotta hunker down and you'll feel it in your calves. You'll feel it in your ankles. You'll feel like in your shoulders, there's just this like, ugh. And, or for the fight, or you have the flight, you'll feel it in your calves and ankles to run. You got to get out of there. You got to do something. Oh, if I just do this, I'll be okay. Right. And it's a dysregulated place. So usually the breath is not going much deeper than mid chest level when you're at that place, or maybe just down to the diaphragm. And the breath you're talking about, which would have that ventral vagal connection, and is why practicing yoga is so important, is to get the breath to go all the way down to your pelvis, all the way down to the lowest diaphragm in your body. That every inhale you take, the pelvic floor expands along with the diaphragm at the midline. And then when you exhale, it naturally comes up. And you'll know if this is out of harmony. If you have pelvic floor issues, a lot of mothers, they've given birth, they haven't learned how to re-engage that. If you have leakage post giving birth, there's something to be said there. And a lot of women, even if you haven't given birth, and men too, they start to experience that. And that's a lack of support. That's a lack of that ventral vagal nerve allowing the breath to actually go out and in. And I have more to say. I have so much to say, but I want to give you.
I know, we can. Well, and there's a thing too, like you're talking about, like with practicing this, that when we do start to practice, just like anything, we create movement, and we'll gain that, and that the trauma that we do experience and that constriction, that is something that I think for all of us at different times of our lives, we will experience that probably. And then it's how we don't get stuck there, and trapped in that space, like you're talking about. Yeah. And it's
in the 5 rhythms.
Go ahead.
Well, in the 5 rhythms, when you're talking about the breath just coming in, it's like, if it doesn't come all the way in, there's probably some stuff to get out. Like, like you said, like, I just take a little bit.
Yeah, the exhale actually, like if women do have, or men have, some pelvic floor issues, just some simple, the inhale as much as they can do comfortably, and the lifting of the pelvic floor. And slowly, it's like the two will come together and they will empower each other, as they move closer together, in that opening and in that strengthening, they will grow together. And this is where I think it's so beautiful, the energetics too, of like the mother and the father archetypes, and the strength, how strength needs, softness and receptivity to fully be supported, and how they feed each other in this way. And I think there's so much beautiful work in trauma-informed yoga now, like you're talking about, with different ways of shaking and the reset, that you're doing, and where these are coming in as additional tools to help people, particularly when we do get stuck in that space, so.
Yeah. And with the 5 rhythms, we're doing embodiment practice with authentic movement. So, there is this beautiful piece about yoga and the form of yoga. And in the 5 rhythms, there's this piece about responding to how your body wants to move, instead of trying to fit it into a guided movement, but it's still activating that thing. The inhale, the flowing, the first rhythm is that feminine. And we are working on, can we get our breath all the way down into our feet? Because that soft part of our feet is also a diaphragm, so can we let the sole of our foot change shape as we breathe? And And then the staccato, the second rhythm, is the exhale. And often, the shadow is tension and holding. So it's about release. And it's like, what movements do you need to do to release? And it's informed by your own authenticity. So I just love putting it all together, right? To have the form, to have just the place where you go into the meditation and discover, to have the authentic movement, to have the oils to help stimulate the ventral vagal in new ways. And it's just our
As well.
body.
And
Say it again.
soothe the ventral vagal, too, not just stimulate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, in the third rhythm is chaos, which is where the shaking comes in. That comes in, and there's repatterning in the last two rhythms. And lyrical, we're doing repatterning where we're really opening and doing maybe even repetitions of opening and stillness to integrate. So I think the piece that seems to be missing so much in our culture is that time for integration.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's come up a lot in conversations I've had. I think especially over the last 6 months, I would say, when we've been really going through this pandemic too, and feeling the depth of the winter that we were in, and pausing a little longer to stay in between the breath, we could say too,
Yeah.
and not rushing that. And there's something beautiful too, like again, just with the inhale and the exhale, how when someone is sometimes struggling, it can, maybe there's all sorts of things can help, but sometimes helping just to focus on the exhale at first a little bit more, to just help really let go of whatever it is. And sometimes it's easier we hold the breath out anyway, right? But if there's a little intention there, and then noticing that the inhale just will come, and as we start to just give that some awareness and stay in the pause a little longer, the breath will start to elongate, naturally, without any force sometimes. And I love what you said, and I love the five rhythms practice that you share, and the reset, and how you integrate all these together. Because I've done it with you, and I think the way that I have learned yoga and the way I try to teach yoga now, and I really am only teaching one-on-one mostly these days, and it's because of the need for it to be so unique for each person, to be able to move so freely, where there are these forms that we sort of generally know are helpful for different reasons because of the scientific anatomical understandings that are very mathematical in nature, that I love where these come together, like the crossover that we have, and the layers and that we can see for ourselves and how they reverberate. Because I think, just to bring it back to being a mother, right? We tend to hold so much. And for people who, maybe don't have children of their own, but they've created something in their life, they've envisioned something, they have devoted their time and energy and love to bring it to life and watch it grow. And like, as an entrepreneur, you do this, just as much. Gardeners do it, every day in their garden. There's also, right? Everyone in their work has that capacity. And that's where I think everyone has that ability, whatever their work is, whatever they're devoted to. Like, we each have unique gifts that only we can bring to that. And I think it's so important for us to value everyone's different roles and help us all step into those fully, because they're important things for us to do. And that's where, as a mom, the layers of things sometimes that we hold for others as to explore their space, and to be given the tools to do their practice and feel all the feels, and go through those own parts of the dance, and then do it over and over again. It's this
Yeah.
beautiful thing we do together.
The archetype of the mother, in her positive aspect is encouragement. And I love what you just said about giving, like, you're holding space for other people to do their work. As a mother of actual children, there's times where me stepping back and letting my kids do exactly what they're going to do, even though I'm going, is that really good for you? But it's like they have to go through their own learning curves in order to fully embody um, their maturing process. And that goes, all of us as humans have had places, and some of us younger than others, where we've created a survival skill to get to the next, just to make it through, where, even as a 40-year-old woman, I'm like, oh, that way of relating to that issue, that's not 40, that's 3. And I'm gonna go towards that and see how I can mature that part of me. And we all have those parts. Some of us were 12, a lot of us are 8, 9, 10. That's a really strong place to come into comparison with others and start to shut ourselves down some ways, where we have more of a social construct understanding. But there's tons of places in life, where if the pattern has started there, how many times do you start to repeat that in your life? And so that, it's like you kind of bookend it. Well, the first time I did it is here, and the last time I did it was here. And we'll just say everything in there is held. And now, how do I want to show up as my full self and encourage myself? So the mantra for or the affirmation for mothering yourself is, I am enough and I am worthy of giving myself love.
That was
And we're telling that to all our clients, right? You are enough and you are worthy of your own love.
Yeah.
And if your well isn't full, back to that chalice, what you give can be spotted with less than loving interactions, right? Fine. So the idea is to just make sure your well is full. And when you have a little one needing so much, like, how do you do that? I say, as I see a little one at a mama's breast, hi. Did that, like 5 years of my life was spent nursing. So, yeah.
Wow.
You just make yourself so available, right? You have to be available. It's so important to be available to others, and then to just prioritize being available to yourself is necessary. Otherwise, you're burnt.
Yeah, well, and I was taught my yoga, like my personal yoga practice, right as I was first becoming a mother. And I had actually been studying yoga from different styles, Ashtanga, Iyengar, integral yoga, 2-year program I was in with them. And then I became a mother, and there was a lot of trauma and grief around me stepping into motherhood all simultaneously. And the process of learning my yoga at that time has continued to be such an important part of just my daily space to take care of myself, to fill myself. And I'm so grateful that I was given a practice that also understood the importance of the mother being given that time in the home, and the importance of that time for her to go dust her altar like you were saying at the beginning, you know, and to be able to have that space for her to be really nurtured, and for her to know how to nurture herself, and that understanding then that in a home where this happens, the kids will also learn many of these tools just through osmosis, you know, because you're cultivating a home and practicing and embodying these kind of tools, even if we're not perfect all the time, right? And we make mistakes as a mom because we maybe are acting like that 8-year-old again, you know, shoot, darn it. You know, I think that what I'm trying to do, I mean, all I can speak is from my own experience, but I'm actively trying to cultivate a space in my home where I can acknowledge these times when I'm like, oh gosh, you know, wow, I'm sorry, you know, and in this, to actively listen to each other and generate spaces for respect and compassion, and, you know, for us all to have this ability to acknowledge each other doing their best, you know, and yeah.
I would say what's been really important, along with owning it, is to figure out my own needs
Mm.
and have a clear ask. You know, so it's like there's been a way that some of my neglect issues have then been projected onto my children to be less than responsive to me. And I'm like, they're just doing what I taught them to do in some ways. And, you know, luckily one of them just has more integrity than that middle child. You know, but the other ones have needed a lot of talking to. And then it turns out like, you know, I'm in a maiden wound of sorts, of the maiden archetype of wanting to be rescued, wanting to be seen without even knowing what I really want. And so to figure out my clear ask, and then to say, this is what I need you to do. And I need you to follow through on this. And I need it to be timely. And then I won't regress. And it's not up to you to make me not regress, but it is up to you to be responsive, and allowing other people to be responsible instead of me taking care of everything. So that's coming out of shadow mothering, right? And this is definitely still a learning curve. I do not enjoy creating consequences as a single mother. I don't have a man here backing me up, and that's huge because, yeah. But
Well, this is a piece, if I can for a minute, this is a piece because I think, I mean, we are both single moms, and that's something that connects us in a certain way. I know, and probably with a lot of the women that we connect with as well and work with. Um, there's this need I have seen in my own life, particularly in the last, I would say, 2.5 years, as I've gone through some acknowledgments of not being the mom I wanted to be and not being the woman that I really wanted to be, and realizing that I needed to create a healthier, safer space for myself and my children. And in doing that, it was calling me forward to create a kind of strength that I had never had before, because I'd been wanting in a certain way to play the maiden and wanted other people. I was leaning on other men for support in certain ways to back me up as a single mom, because I didn't want to enforce those consequences. But that also played out, I will say, in professional ways and in different romantic ways. And in friendship ways, I think. And what I've seen is, we talked about the need to even just the pelvic floor. And again, this level of strength, like that's very literal, that women actually need to facilitate health in their whole feminine organs and base of their body. You know, this is all related to creating healthy boundaries and strength, you know, that is truly ours, that we're not leaning on someone else for. And
Yeah.
I do think it took me until I was 40 to really sort of actually start stepping into that in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I would say I had a really horrible injury that had me in bed for a couple of years because of the martyr mother syndrome. And, I wouldn't ask my kids to do much because I could do it faster and better, but the burnout and all the working I'm doing and all the things took me out. And in some of my healing process, that's still happening to this day. I'm much better. But I'm noticing places where muscles and joints in the pelvis are frozen, like they can't initiate movement. They're being like pulled to possibly move eventually, and then the fascia like wants to rebound, and the fascia is what holds all the emotional memory. So that's a part of working that vagal nerve, is to help the fascia um, unpattern those stuck emotions. But I'm noticing a lot in my clients who are feeling unsupported, how frozen their pelvis is, how much they're not able to articulate really small, tiny movements that have a lot to do with the psoas. And the psoas is the fight, flight, or freeze muscle that will help you run, because it's that hip flexor, or it will help you plant. So I'm noticing pelvic floor, psoas, get those calves loose, and find your breath. And so there is I love this one woman's work. I'm not going to remember her name right now. I'm never under pressure, but she does this hypopressive work. And she has a whole YouTube channel, and you can get it all for free. But I've been loving it. It helps heal the diastasis if you had any separation in your abdominals. It helps tone the pelvic floor. It's really simple. It's like 15 minutes. If you want to do like the whole gamut, it's 30 minutes. But I've been finding it so healing, and getting in touch with that transverse ab to help the psoas let go more. And there's a plethora of
We'll have to put
information.
that in the links that we'll include.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm so grateful for everything you've already shared. I'm curious if we want to open it up for some questions and see if anyone else here has some thoughts they'd like to share with us, or any questions for Kiaora or myself. Don't be shy. Yeah, come off, Dee.
I was just going to say, I wish I had this information when I was your ages. But I mean, it's so interesting, and it still really helped me.
So this is my oldest son, Osiris.
Hi.
And he has some skin stuff. So we do this almost every day, where I put coconut oil all over his back to help with his eczema. It's part of the mothering.
Such a good mom. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I love that he's open to receiving this still. So that's really sweet too.
Such a special thing to share, just a sweet moment of loving touch goes a long way. Yeah.
I wanted to share. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Dee?
I just kind of wanted to say that it's and at my age it's still helpful. Yeah, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. There's a lot to learn, but I just think it's neat that you're starting. Well, you've been starting your whole life, but this is great information.
I think it's never over. I think the minute you think it's over, you're kind of letting your brain die.
Yeah.
So, to be dramatic about it.
And I want to say, keep that in mind. I feel like okay, I just turned 70, which really freaks me out, which you'll find out as you get older. You're like, all of a sudden you go, well, wait a minute, I'm still the same person, in my mind. I look different, but I feel like as I get older, I learn more. Um, I just feel like it continues to be more capacity for learning. And I really appreciate my connection with Kiaora, because I just feel like that's really helped me, just grow and learn and get better and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you are enabled to be really proactive in your life. You seek outside of us, and you
Yeah.
and that's the thing that I continue to stress is like, I'm not healing anyone. I'm guiding people to heal themselves. And the minute it's on me, it's too much for me. I don't want to be the master healer. I know a lot and I love knowing a lot and I love creating space for other people to grow. But it really has to be one's own readiness that gets you there, and
Yeah.
one's own desire to explore yourself and feel. And that's the part when I was talking about integration, where I'm like, you in the spaces between the breath, not to disassociate and go numb, but to actually feel. And that's in the stillness practice and 5 rhythms we do, like inhale into a shape, exhale, feel, or exhale into a shape, inhale, feel. And they have different qualities of feeling when you feel on the exhale or feel on the inhale. It is a different sense of wiring connecting. I also wanted to say ways to nourish your mother if you have some shadow mother stuff coming up. And I did say have a clear ask, that the queen. The other thing to do is, the wild woman archetype. I'm looking at my notes. It's like, and the lover archetype. So having a strong practice of self-love and to prioritize your own growth is a huge piece of healing. And the thing is, when we do our own work, like you said earlier, Amy, about if we model it, then they will know. Our children, they will have it innately in them. But it can go epigenetically in either direction. When we're doing our work, the atoms in our body actually speak to the genetic code. It goes to the past. You can heal past stuff from generations, with all the Black Lives Matter and all the studies coming up from all of that. It's like the codes in our body are 14 generations deep. So some of the stuff that you have to deal with that gets triggered in survival is your great 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 grandmothers, and so when you heal that, you're feeding that through space and time, which technically doesn't actually exist. And as you feed that through space and time, you're creating the possibility and the desire for something in her to keep going. You have no idea. All you can do is be responsible for yourself. But I've noticed it when I do big upshifts in my own life. I've noticed my children change, and I've noticed some of the issues that they take on that were my specific issues, which maybe were my dad's, but were my issues. I've noticed them come face to face with them and do their own healing around it. So it's just self-prioritizing is not selfish. It's actually you're creating openness for everyone around you, the field around you. So even non-genetically, right? You have those 5 people in your bubble, and they feel you expand, and then they want to either vibrate with you and keep growing, or they might fall away. And that's okay, because growth is like what we're actually programmed for.
Well, and I think that's just sort of the flow of life that we will have too. You know, people come in and out, and that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
it's the relationships, and how we nurture all these relationships in the process. I think that I do think is the mother archetype, how I feel it, I think currently in my life, you know, and how I feel like holding space for myself, and knowing you can only do so much, right? Like I love what you said about I have no desire to be the master teacher, you know, anything like that, because I just think that's a very important position to take whenever you want to be really of service to someone else, is to honor them as their autonomous life and their own truth and their own intelligence, and trusting that, you know, for them, you know. um so I think that's what we do as mothers with our kids too, is to see the best in them, and want to hold them in that, you know, all the time.
Yeah, and there's a place of, for me, I'm a bit of a catalyst. So when things are going weird, I'm one to talk about them.
Mm.
You know, like I go straight to it. I'm like, what is this? How are you relating to this? Like, I'm going to poke and prod you to do your own investigating. Um, and even if you don't want to, even if I'm annoying, and the minute you say, I can't do this, back off, I will listen to you. I'll give you your autonomy, but then I might come back again and say, and how are you sitting with that? You know, so there's the encouragement of self-reflection is um, a big part of how I mother my children. And um,
I just have to
especially
honor you too, because I think that it does take strength then to stay in this conversation. I think this is where we do ideally have support, you know, in a family environment, whether it's with our partner or with another family member. And Beth, yeah, come on. What do you want to say about this, love? Join us here.
Well, first, I want to just say how grateful I am that we're having this conversation, because it's so needed for me right now. I have this little cuteness that I'm raising, as well as a 13-year-old, all on my own. And a lot of my stuff is coming up with my 13-year-old. Like, I love what Kiaora said about, you know, like trusting them to make their choices, even if it's not something that you fully agree with. That's a huge one for us right now. So we're going through a lot of struggles, and a lot of like, he's becoming independent, and our relationship is shifting hugely. And so that's been really hard for me to accept. And then also, you know, juggling this little one and like finding time for myself has been really hard. And I notice if I don't take the time for myself, that's when like the days are way worse. And I go into that like survival mode. And of course I have a lot of things, you know, in play and going on. But the days that I'm able to do my practice, you know, in the morning and in the evening, like I see just a huge shift in how I'm able to relate to both of my children. Yeah, so and I'm grateful that my son does talk to a couple people that I trust, like my dearest friend, who's like his aunt. So a lot of things have come up with that. And yeah, it's I realized on Mother's Day, this was the first Mother's Day that he kind of didn't acknowledge me so much. And so that was really hard. But I realized that like I don't acknowledge myself. So it was a hard thing for me to like see, and how much I negatively talk to myself as a mom.
Oh, I just want to say, oh,
So yeah, so that's just something that's come up the past few days.
I know you're an amazing mom. I do, personally.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you of what Kiaora said, you are enough. I
Yeah.
think that's such a valid thing with like these feelings of needing to trust him and his decisions and how he's showing up for you and this reflection that you're feeling and what you're learning from these kind of interactions. I think this is where we do have to be so gentle on ourselves and come back to that you are,
I would love to offer as well that as the feminine is not meant to be a pillar. We are meant to be a web. So, and one of the best ways to simply activate your ventral vagal nerve is to come into gratitude. So, I heard you say that you were grateful for this auntie, sister, friend of yours, and to practice the gratitudes every day. And it sounds like gratitudes for what you do, honoring what you do. And it's like, I'm grateful for my healthy children. I'm grateful for this house we live in. I'm grateful for, you can make it very basic, or you can get really into the meat of, I feel lacking here, name a thing. I want to feel like this about that. Noticing that both of those things exist at the same time, and then seeing a way that they can meet in the middle to kind of neutralize it. Like, it's not that you can't have that thing you want, that feeling. It's that you're feeling immobilized here. So when you just start to go to the thing you want, how it is, the thing you want, how it is, and keep toggling back and forth between these two things. And in the reset, we even do this thing called jumper cables, where we actually, like, the thing I want is over here, the thing that I feel that's hard is over here. And I'll let myself kind of just move however my body wants to move in between those things until it doesn't feel like there's so much to move in between. There's this place that they've kind of balanced out, and you really let the breath do it. So you're going to like discharge the polarity of those two things, polarity work. And you're just discharging the polarity with your breath and your movement. And eventually you come into this place of balance. And how do I feel now? In my balanced place, I feel full or possible, or, and you just acknowledge that feeling. And that's getting the ventral vagal nerve online. So there's a quick crash course in polarities. If you're going in your mind and kind of basically that's like an autoimmune kind of mental attack on yourself to go after yourself, and I'm not enough. So it's just a mental place of too much energy back and forth, where if we get into the polarity of it and neutralize it, we can have some sense of peace, and feeling like you're capable of what's next, what is next. And doing a lot of the visionary work with that, seeing yourself interacting with your world from that place, once you've neutralized the polarity, is hugely beneficial to creating new pathways and new choices. So I don't know if that made sense, but I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I was going to add too, I think remembering that this transition that you're in right now has that space of polarity really strongly at this age, with what your son's going through and where you are in that dynamic of your relationship. And that is a natural part of this journey that we're on together in this life. And there's this, like Dee, on the elder here on your journey, and what, I can only imagine what that we don't know. and as a young person at 13, I thought I knew everything, right? So I just think it's so helpful for us to stay in community and stay connected to our elders and our other parents, and find the support. Like you talked about, we are webs. And I think at these transitional ages, it's really helpful to lean in to support there, and connect for yourself. Because sometimes just having these kinds of conversations can actually just be a huge thing in the moment, to share with someone else. Realize you're not alone. We're not alone, ever. And I'm so grateful. I think maybe it's 11 o'clock on the dot, because I feel like we could keep talking and talking. And I want to come to your class, Kiaora. I hope I see all of you at some of your classes. And maybe when we post this, you can share some of your upcoming classes, and all your information will include that, so everyone can get in touch with you. And
Cool.
I just want to thank you all for being here. And yeah, blessings for being the mother that you are, and for just sharing your light and your love with us here. Kiaora, thank you for being my friend too for all these years. I'm truly.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation to join you here too. It's fun to create together.
Yes. Hope we do much more of it.
Me too.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Happy new moon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.